Do you remember those old Betty Crocker Christmas dishes nobody makes anymore? These dishes once filled mid-century holiday tables, baked from trusted cookbooks and family habit. What does it mean that the recipes that shaped our holidays have quietly disappeared? Cranberry candles mold was the kind of festive display that once sat proudly in the center of mid-century holiday tables, glowing red like stained glass under soft Christmas lights. Betty Crocker guides taught home cooks how to turn canned cranberry sauce, gelatin, and fruit into tall, candle-shaped molds that slid out of tin forms with a glossy wobble. Your grandparents loved these because they represented celebration on a budget, bright color without expensive ingredients, and a sense of style that made even simple meals feel special. The molds were often arranged on lettuce leaves or parsley borders with little almond slices or pineapple bits acting as pretend flames at the top. It was playful and decorative and absolutely everywhere in 1960s and 1970s cookbooks. Making them took patience because each mold had to chill long enough to hold its shape. But once they set, they looked like something pulled straight from a vintage magazine spread. Over time, gelatin dishes fell out of fashion, and cranberry candles mostly disappeared, leaving behind a memory of holidays when creativity mattered more than cost. The molds were not just food. They were holiday excitement in edible form, shaped by hands that wanted Christmas to feel magical no matter the budget. Tomato aspic ring was a savory gelatin dish that once appeared in nearly every Betty Crocker holiday spread, even though today most people cannot imagine eating tomato juice suspended in a mold. Your grandparents knew it as a classic cold salad presented in bright red rings filled with crisp lettuce, celery, or cucumber in the center. It was elegant by mid-century standards, a way to show skill and modern taste when gelatin molds were considered the height of home entertaining. The mixture combined seasoned tomato liquid, gelatin, Worcestershire, and sometimes chopped vegetables, then chilled until firm enough to slice. The aspic was served alongside turkey ham or roast, making it a refreshing counterbalance to heavy foods. It looked dramatic on a table, especially when unmolded onto a polished platter shaped perfectly smooth and glistening under holiday lights. Time changed the expectations of Christmas menus, and with that change, tomato aspic faded quietly from homes replaced by fresher, lighter dishes. But for families who remember it, the aspic was a sign of tradition, care, and pride in presenting something beautiful even when ingredients were humble. It carried the spirit of a hostess who wanted her table to look as joyful as the season itself. Holiday ribbon salad layered color, flavor, and texture into one tall, shimmering dish that stood out in Betty Crocker Christmas cookbooks. Each layer used a different mixture of gelatin, cream cheese, fruit, or whipped topping poured gently over the previous layer after it cooled just enough to hold its shape. The final result was a striped dessert that looked like a wrapped present sliced open at the table, revealing bright, cheerful bands of red, green, white, or pink grandparents-made ribbon salad because it felt festive and show-stopping, even though the ingredients were inexpensive and widely available. It was chilled in loaf pans or ring molds, then unmolded onto lettuce or a serving tray dusted with coconut for extra sparkle. Kids loved its sweetness, adults loved its novelty, and hosts loved how it held together perfectly when sliced ribbon salads slowly disappeared as dessert trends shifted towards simpler baked treats. But in its time, this dish was a celebration centerpiece. It represented patience, creativity, and the belief that holiday meals deserved color and joy. Even if nobody makes it now, ribbon salad remains a bright memory of old Christmas tables that sparkled with intention and care. Caramel biscuit pudding was the warm, mid-century dessert that transformed leftover biscuits into something rich and comforting during winter evenings. Betty Crocker promoted it as a thrifty yet elegant solution for holiday meals using torn biscuits soaked in a caramel syrup made from brown sugar, butter, and milk. As the pudding baked, the biscuits absorbed the syrup and softened into tender pockets of sweetness, while the top formed a glossy, sticky layer that crackled under the spoon. It filled kitchens with the deep smell of caramel-toasted bread and Christmas spices, making even small homes feel full of warmth. This pudding was a favorite because it stretched ingredients without feeling cheap, turning scraps into a dessert that tasted indulgent. Served with whipped cream or a drizzle of warm syrup, it felt like something special enough for company, yet simple enough for any winter night. Over the years, as baking trends changed, caramel biscuit pudding faded from holiday tables, replaced by quicker store-bought sweets. But for those who remember it, the dish represents resourcefulness, hospitality, and the magic of transforming everyday ingredients into something unforgettable. Crown Roast of Frankfurters was a playful, iconic showpiece that Betty Crocker featured in mid-century Christmas entertaining guides using little more than hot dogs, toothpicks, and creativity. The Frankfurters were sliced at the ends to form decorative fringes, then stood upright in a circle, tied or pinned until they formed a crown shape. The center was often filled with mashed potatoes, stuffing, or colorful relish, giving the dish a humorous but charming appearance. Families loved it because it felt festive without requiring expensive cuts of meat, a way to bring fun to the table when budgets were tight. Kids adored its look, adults appreciated its practicality, and hosts enjoyed presenting something eye-catching with minimal effort. It symbolized a time when imagination made up for limited resources, turning the simplest ingredient into a holiday centerpiece. Today, it survives mostly in old cookbooks and faded magazine clippings, but the memory of this quirky centerpiece reflects a Christmas world where fun mattered just as much as flavor. Green Christmas wreath salad was a lime gelatin mold shaped into a wreath and decorated with bright red cherries, giving tables a burst of holiday color. Betty Crocker popularized this dish for mid-century hostesses who wanted something festive, easy, and visually striking. The mixture combined lime gelatin, crushed pineapple cream cheese, or whipped topping depending on the household, and was chilled in a ring mold until firm. Once unmolded, it resembled a shiny green wreath, often set on lettuce leaves and dotted with cherries meant to mimic berries. It brought playful cheer to holiday spreads and was especially beloved by children who enjoyed its sweet, tart flavor. Over time, tastes shifted and colorful. Gelatin dishes disappeared from modern menus, but this wreath salad remains an unforgettable symbol of retro holiday charm. Snowball frosting cake was the fluffy white coconut-covered Christmas dessert that looked like a mound of fresh snow glowing under holiday lights. Betty Crocker promoted this cake throughout the 1950s as the perfect winter showpiece thanks to its cloud-soft frosting and blanket of shredded coconut. The cake layers were baked light and tender, then frosted generously with boiled icing or fluffy white frosting before being coated on all sides. When finished, it resembled a snow-covered hill, making it a magical centerpiece for children and adults alike. Its flavor was simple, sweet, and comforting, and its appearance made it unforgettable at winter gatherings. Grandparents loved serving it because it looked dramatic, without requiring expensive ingredients, and it held its shape well on long holiday tables, warmed by laughter and soft lights. Every slice felt like a small celebration wrapped in white. Dutch apple kuchen was the cozy breakfast treat Betty Crocker pushed during the holiday season, combining soft dough, warm apples, and a sugary crumble topping. It was baked in wide pans so that families could cut generous squares on Christmas morning, filling the house with the smell of cinnamon-rising dough and sweet apples. This dish blended the feel of coffee cake with the tenderness of fruit pastries, making it both comforting and celebratory. It disappeared as store-bought pastries replaced homemade breakfasts, but it remains one of the most nostalgic Betty Crocker holiday bakes. Grandparents served it warm with butter melting into the top, and children gathered close to the table, waiting for their piece as the winter sun came through frosted windows. It made mornings feel special long before gifts were opened. Golden squash pie was the mid-century alternative to pumpkin pie when winter squash was cheaper, easier to store, or more available. Betty Crocker offered versions that used mashed squash blended with spices, milk, and eggs to create a smooth custard filling glowing a deeper gold than traditional pumpkin. The pie baked into a warm, sweet, earthy dessert that tasted familiar yet slightly richer. Families made it when budgets were tight or when gardens produced more squash than anything else, making it a practical but delicious holiday choice. The filling held a natural sweetness that felt comforting after long, cold weeks, and the color brought brightness to winter tables. Slices disappeared quickly because the flavor surprised people every time, reminding them that simple ingredients could still feel festive. Holiday meatloaf with cherry glaze was Betty Crocker's attempt to dress up an inexpensive everyday dish for Christmas gatherings. The loaf was seasoned with onions, herbs, and breadcrumbs, then baked and brushed with a glossy cherry glaze that added sweetness, color, and shine. It brought a festive look to simple ingredients and made holiday meals feel abundant even when money was limited. Though unusual by modern standards, it reflects a time when presentation mattered and creativity turned inexpensive meals into something worthy of celebration. Families enjoyed its balance of savory and sweet, and the glaze made it look like something that belonged beside the more traditional holiday dishes. It was proof that even humble meals could feel special with the right touch. Cranberry upside-down cake was one of those forgotten Christmas desserts that once appeared in early Betty Crocker cookbooks as a bright jewel-toned centerpiece. It began with a layer of cranberry sprinkled with sugar in the bottom of a cake pan, their tartness softening as the heat transformed them into a glossy red topping. Over this, she poured a light vanilla batter that baked into a soft golden layer, absorbing just enough cranberry juice to tint the edges. When the cake was flipped onto a platter, the cranberries glistened like holiday ornaments, creating a dessert that felt both simple and dramatic. Families served it warm with whipped cream, melting slowly down the sides, a contrast of tart berries and sweet cake that captured the spirit of winter gatherings. It carried the charm of recipes made from pantry staples rather than store-bought shortcuts, and it celebrated cranberries in a way modern holiday menus rarely revisit. This cake disappeared quietly as tastes changed and as gelatin molds and chocolate desserts grew more popular, but older cookbooks still hold the memory of its red shimmer. Grandparents remembered it as a dessert that looked impressive without costing much, perfect for holiday tables when creativity mattered just as much as flavor. Today it remains a nostalgic reminder of the early Betty Crocker era when home bakers trusted their pans, their instincts, and the seasonal ingredients waiting in their cabinets. It was a dish that reflected warmth, care, and a little holiday magic in every slice. Christmas snow salad was the kind of festive chilled dish that Betty Crocker promoted when families loved adding creamy sweet salads to their holiday tables. It was made from whipped cream, pineapple, marshmallows, and sometimes nuts folded together until the mixture resembled soft winter snow piled into a glass bowl. The salad sat in the refrigerator for hours where it firmed slightly, becoming cool and airy with every ingredient suspended in a cloud-like mixture. On Christmas Day, it was spooned onto plates beside ham or turkey, adding a bright sweet contrast to the savory dishes. Children loved its softness, while adults appreciated its novelty and gentle sweetness, especially in an era when holiday meals often featured both savory and dessert. Like sides, Christmas snow salad was more than a dish, it was a moment of whimsy on an otherwise heavy winter table. Its white color mirrored the season and made every plate look more cheerful. Over time, tastes shifted and the idea of sweet salads faded from Christmas menus, leaving recipes like this tucked inside old holiday cookbooks. Yet for grandparents, it represented a style of entertaining where joy was found in simple ingredients whipped into something that felt magical. It was a taste of mid-century Christmases when creativity, warmth, and a bit of playful indulgence defined the holiday meal. Maple butter-baked ham was one of Betty Crocker's most beloved Christmas dinner features, a warm, fragrant centerpiece that brought sweetness and comfort to the table. The ham was scored carefully, then brushed with a glaze made from melted butter maple syrup and spices, creating a glossy coating that caramelized as it baked. Throughout the cooking process, she basted it again and again, allowing the glaze to seep into the meat and form a rich golden crust. The aroma of warm maple and savory ham filled the house, drifting through every room and signaling that Christmas dinner was nearing. Families sliced it into thick, tender pieces, served with potatoes, vegetables, and rolls that soaked up the extra glaze. This dish represented a time when holiday meals were built on tradition and the belief that a little sweetness could elevate even the simplest ingredients. The maple glaze gave the ham a luxurious feel without adding much cost, making it perfect for families who wanted something special but still practical. Over the years, the dish faded as honey-baked hams and store-prepared options rose in popularity. Still, the memory of maple butter-baked ham remains in old Betty Crocker books, a reminder of Christmas dinners made slowly with care. It was a dish meant to bring people together around a warm table, glowing with the sense of the season. Swiss vegetable pie was a savory holiday brunch dish Betty Crocker promoted when families hosted Christmas morning gatherings and needed something warm and impressive without being costly. It began with a crust, or sometimes no crust at all, filled with vegetables such as spinach, carrots, onions, or whatever was available, mixed with eggs, cream, and Swiss cheese. As it baked, the custard set into a firm, tender filling while the cheese melted throughout, giving each bite a gentle nuttiness. The aroma of vegetables and cheese drifting from the oven signaled a slower, quieter moment in the holiday. Families sliced it into wedges served beside fruit coffee and pastries, creating a breakfast that felt comforting and celebratory. At the same time, Swiss vegetable pie belonged to an era when home cooks relied on versatile recipes that could adapt to pantry ingredients while still looking elegant on the table. It faded from modern menus as brunch trends shifted and quicker options took its place, but it remains a charming part of Betty Crocker's Christmas history. It reflected a holiday morning built on softness, warmth, and gathering before the bustle of the day began. Date nut bread rings were one of the most beloved mid-century holiday hostess staples, shaped in ring molds and served with smooth cream cheese or butter. Betty Crocker encouraged home bakers to use them for Christmas open houses because they were easy to slice, easy to serve, and visually stunning. The bread itself combined chopped dates, nuts, flour, eggs, and sugar into a dense, moist loaf with a rich caramel-like sweetness. Shaping it into a ring made it feel instantly festive, especially when decorated with a small bow or placed on a holiday platter. Guests cut small slices, spread them with cream cheese, and enjoyed them alongside coffee or hot cider. It was the kind of treat that felt homemade and elegant at the same time. Date nut bread rings eventually fell out of favor as molded breads and ring pans disappeared from common kitchens, but they remain a beautiful example of mid-century holiday entertaining. In Betty Crocker's world, they symbolized hospitality, creativity, and warmth. They were meant to fill a table with generosity during the season of sharing. Peppermint chiffon pie was the pale pink cloud of a dessert that once appeared on many Betty Crocker winter menus, offering a light, airy alternative to heavier Christmas sweets. It began with crushed peppermint candy folded into a chiffon mixture of whipped cream, gelatin, and sugar, creating a soft pastel filling poured into a simple crust. As it chilled, it firmed into a delicate slice that melted on the tongue, leaving a gentle mint sweetness. Its color alone made it perfect for holiday tables, reminiscent of candy canes and festive ribbons. Families served it after heavy meals because it felt refreshing instead of overwhelming. Over time, chiffon pies lost popularity, and peppermint desserts shifted toward bark and cookies, leaving this once beloved pie behind. Yet, it remains a symbol of mid-century elegance, and the Betty Crocker approach to creating desserts that looked cheerful and tasted light. It was a dish meant to bring a breath of winter freshness to the end of a warm family meal. Old-fashioned fruitcake loaf was one of Betty Crocker's most persistent holiday recommendations, a dense loaf packed with candied fruit nuts, spices, and warm winter aroma. It was mixed, slowly baked carefully, and cooled fully before slicing, sometimes wrapped and stored for days to deepen the flavor. For many families, it became a gifting tradition because the loaf traveled well and symbolized care and effort. The colors of red, green, and gold fruit pieces made each slice look festive, even if the flavor was richer than modern tastes prefer. Fruitcake slowly faded from popularity, but older generations remembered its place on Christmas tables and its importance in holiday sharing. In Betty Crocker's cookbooks, it stood as a symbol of patience, tradition, and the belief that some desserts were meant to last beyond a single day. Turkey almondine casserole was Betty Crocker's answer to the week after Christmas, when leftover turkey filled refrigerators and families wanted something warm and new. She mixed turkey with a creamy sauce, vegetables, rice, or noodles, and topped it with toasted almonds for crunch. The casserole baked into a comforting dish that stretched leftovers into another complete meal, making the holiday season feel abundant even after the main feast was gone. It represented a style of cooking where nothing was wasted and every ingredient could be transformed into something special. Over time, casseroles changed, but turkey almondine remains part of Betty Crocker's approach to thrifty holiday cooking. It reminded families that creativity mattered just as much as cost, and that even simple dishes could feel luxurious with one thoughtful topping. The warm aroma drifting from the oven made homes feel full again even after the big day had passed. Cherry pineapple gelatin mold was one of the bright jewel-toned centerpieces found on mid-century Christmas tables, built from gelatin canned fruit and decorative molds. The mixture set into a scalloped ring that held cherries and pineapple pieces suspended like stained glass. It brought color to winter meals and added a sweet chilled side dish to balance heavier foods. This mold reflected a time when appearance was as important as flavor, and holiday tables were dressed in vivid colors. Eventually, gelatin salads faded from style, but this dish remains iconic within vintage Betty Crocker collections. It recalled an era when hospitality meant crafting something eye-catching even with inexpensive ingredients, and when molded salads were considered the height of festive creativity. The shimmer of fruit beneath the surface made every table look a little more cheerful. Cranberry bread pudding was the thrifty warm dessert families made when leftover bread met cans or jars of cranberry sauce in the days after Christmas. The bread soaked up milk eggs, sugar and spices, transforming into a custard-like base that baked into soft, comforting layers. Cranberry swirls added tart sweetness throughout, making each bite feel festive. Served warm with cream or butter, it was a dessert rooted in resourcefulness and holiday flavor. It captured the Betty Crocker belief that nothing should go to waste and that simple ingredients could bring deep comfort. The pudding filled kitchens with a gentle, spicy aroma that made even quiet winter evenings feel special, and it offered a way to turn scraps into something loved rather than forgotten. Grandparents remembered it as a dessert that made the season last just a little longer. Spiced orange glazed carrots were once considered an elegant Betty Crocker Christmas side dish, the kind of recipe that appeared in glossy holiday magazine spreads and hostess guides during the mid-century era. She sliced the carrots into soft rounds, simmering them until tender before covering them in a glossy orange glaze made from juice zest butter and warm spices. The glaze thickened gently on the stove, turning into a fragrant syrup that clung to each piece and made the entire kitchen smell like winter warmth. When she poured the carrots into a serving dish, their bright orange color shone against the darker holiday table settings, and the sweet citrus aroma drifted through the room like a burst of sunshine on a cold day. This dish was meant to add sophistication to inexpensive vegetables, and it succeeded by transforming something simple into something festive. In those years, elegance did not come from price, but from intention presentation and the sense of celebration that infused every carefully prepared dish. The spiced carrots felt fancy, even though they used ingredients that most families already had in their kitchens. They represented the mid-century dream that a Christmas table could feel elevated through thoughtful touches and small luxuries created with care. Today, dishes like this have faded, but they remain vivid in old Betty Crocker pages, where bright glazes and soft winter spices defined December cooking. Swedish tea ring was the warm, fragrant holiday breakfast pastry that filled mid-century kitchens on Christmas morning, thanks to its placement in Betty Crocker's festive baking guides. The ring began as a rich yeast dough rolled out and spread with cinnamon sugar butter and chopped nuts before being shaped into a circle and sliced partway through to create its distinctive twisted pattern. As it baked, the layers puffed into golden spirals, each one scented with spice and sweetness, drifting through the house like a holiday invitation. Families gathered around the table to tear off pieces while the ring was still warm, letting the sticky filling cling to their fingers and plates. It was both a breakfast and a celebration, an edible centerpiece meant to welcome the day with comfort and joy. The Swedish tea ring symbolized the idea that holiday mornings deserved something homemade and special, even when money or time was limited. Once beloved in households across the country, it slowly disappeared as store-bought pastries replaced the ritual of rising early to bake. But the memory of that warm, ring-shaped pastry remains part of the old Betty Crocker Christmas spirit, where traditions were built from dough sugar and shared moments around the kitchen table. Chicken liver's patlog was one of Betty Crocker's attempts to make mid-century Christmas cocktail parties feel sophisticated, using ingredients that were inexpensive yet capable of appearing luxurious. Chicken livers were sautéed, blended with butter seasonings, and sometimes a splash of fortified wine before being molded into a smooth log shape and chilled until firm. Once unmolded, it was coated with herbs, nuts, or paprika to create a striking presentation that fit the elegant, entertaining style of the era. Hosts served thin slices on crackers or toast points, believing this dish brought a touch of continental flair to American holiday gatherings. The patlog became part of the vintage tradition in which presentation mattered deeply, and thrifty ingredients could be transformed with technique, imagination, and confidence. Though modern tastes have shifted away from such spreads, the old cookbooks preserve its place as a symbol of holiday hospitality. It remains a snapshot of a time when Christmas parties revolved around carefully arranged trays, small bites, and the belief that every guest should feel pampered, even with budget-friendly recipes. Holiday cheese ball with pimiento was once a Christmas essential displayed proudly on appetizer tables and party buffets in countless Betty Crocker holiday guides. The mixture blended cream cheese, cheddar, pimiento, and seasonings into a smooth, moldable mixture that was shaped by hand and rolled in chopped nuts for texture. Served with crackers, celery sticks, or bread rounds, the cheese ball brought color, flavor, and a sense of fun to the holiday spread. It captured the mid-century love of molded foods that were shaped, sculpted, dressed, and decorated for special occasions. The cheese ball was simple, affordable, and endlessly adaptable, making it a favorite among hostesses who wanted something reliable yet festive. Over the decades, it faded as tastes shifted toward fresher, lighter holiday foods, but vintage photos still show it shining beneath tinsel garlands and brass candlesticks. It was a symbol of celebration built from pantry staples and Betty Crocker's message that holiday magic could be made from anything when handled with pride. Christmas cranberry chutney mold was one of the spiced gelatin dishes Betty Crocker pushed in her mid-century holiday menus, presenting cranberries not just as sauce, but as a shaped, glistening centerpiece. Cranberries, sugar spices, and sometimes citrus were simmered down, then mixed with gelatin, and poured into decorative molds that created scalloped or fluted designs once chilled. When unmolded, the chutney held its shape, beautifully glowing red like a gem under dining room lights. Its tangy, spiced flavor paired well with turkey ham and stuffing, offering a bright contrast to heavier dishes. The mold symbolized the era when gelatin creations were considered glamorous and the height of holiday presentation. It embraced the idea that even condiments could be elevated into showpieces with the right mold and a little creativity. Though chutney molds rarely appear, now they remain a hallmark of Betty Crocker's vintage Christmas style. Raisin Spice Drop cookies were the soft, warmly spiced holiday treats found in early Betty Crocker books, the kind baked by the dozens for school events, church gatherings, and family tins. Made from butter, sugar, flour, raisins, and warm spices, these cookies puffed gently as they baked, creating soft, pillowy centers that tasted like cinnamon-filled winter air. Their scent filled the kitchen and drifted down hallways, making the whole house smell like Christmas. Families baked large batches to share with neighbors and friends, continuing the old tradition of gifting homemade sweets during the holiday season. Though modern cookie trends have grown more elaborate, there is something enduring about these humble raisin-studded drops that speaks to a simpler time. Each batch felt like an act of care, and every warm cookie handed out felt like a small holiday kindness offered from one home to another. Poinsettia Punch was the bright red cranberry-based drink mixed into glass bowls for Christmas parties in mid-century Betty Crocker entertaining guides. The punch blended cranberry juice, citrus, and ginger ale, poured over ice rings frozen with cherries or mint leaves to look festive. It added sparkle, color, and sweetness to gatherings and was considered essential for hosts who wanted a cheerful drink that appealed to both children and adults. The punch bowl became a centerpiece, and guests gathered around dipping ladles into the shimmering red liquid. It was more than a drink, it was an atmosphere setter. It set the tone for an evening where laughter felt lighter and conversations flowed easily, reminding everyone that holiday cheer could begin with the simplest shared sip. Orange clove-baked custard was the gently spiced dessert that warmed vintage Christmas tables, offering a soft, soothing sweetness without the heaviness of pies. Milk eggs, sugar orange zest, and cloves baked slowly into a silky custard that set into tender spoonfuls, glowing faintly golden. Served warm or chilled, it was a comforting, simple dessert that balanced richness with lightness. Families appreciated its practicality because it required basic ingredients and carried the holiday scent of citrus and spice. Though overshadowed by flashier desserts, it remains a quiet classic within Betty Crocker's winter recipes. Each spoonful held the gentle warmth of oranges and cloves, the very essence of an old-fashioned holiday night where the glow of the tree and the hush of winter made simple desserts taste extraordinary. Turkey stuffed celery boats were the retro cold appetizer from Betty Crocker's 60s and 70s. Christmas hostess sections combining leftover turkey with mayonnaise seasonings and sometimes chopped vegetables. The mixture was spooned into crisp celery sticks, creating a refreshing, crunchy bite that balanced richer dishes. These celery boats appeared on party trays at a time when presentation favored neat, tidy finger foods that guests could enjoy while mingling. Though rarely seen now, they represent a chapter of holiday entertaining built around thrift, creativity, and charm. Angel pie with lemon filling was the delicate meringue-crusted dessert that once dazzled mid-century Christmas tables with its airy texture and bright flavor. The crust was made from whipped egg whites and sugar, baked until crisp, then filled with silky lemon cream and chilled. Its snowy appearance and light citrus taste made it a perfect winter dessert, especially for hostesses who wanted something elegant. Over time, it faded from popularity, but vintage Betty Crocker books preserve this ethereal pie as one of the gentlest, sweetest holiday treats of its era. Baked zucchini chips were a healthier and speedy alternative to fried snacks, made by slicing zucchini thin, lightly breading them, and baking until crisp. This recipe took advantage of abundant summer produce, turning it into a satisfying snack that was easy to prepare and gentle on the wallet. The light breading added crunch without overwhelming the delicate flavor of the zucchini, making these chips appealing to both children and adults. Baked zucchini chips reflected the mid-century emphasis on practical cooking methods that stretched ingredients and reduced waste. They could be served as a side dish or party snack, fitting well into the quick meal planning popular at the time. This recipe demonstrated how simple steps could transform fresh vegetables into something special, providing a nostalgic reminder of homegrown goodness and easy, wholesome cooking. No apples? No problem. Betty Crocker had a solution that blew minds and confused taste buds. Mock apple pie was made with Ritz crackers, sugar, cinnamon, and lemon juice, but no fruit at all. It mimicked the texture and flavor of apple pie so well that most people had no idea what they were eating until you told them. The crackers stood in for apple slices. The syrupy mixture made everything gooey and sweet, and the pie crust held it all together like it had something to prove. People who grew up with it often remembered it as one of the most surprising dishes their mothers or grandmothers ever made. This dish came from lean times, first during the Depression, then again during World War II. But Betty revived it in later editions to teach frugality with flair. It was especially popular during rationing when apples were expensive or out of season and pantry staples had to carry the load. Some people swore it tasted just like the real thing. Others thought it was weird in the best way. Either way, it got people talking. That was part of the charm. And maybe that is why it stayed in print for so long. A trick pie that fooled you into tasting comfort. Using wax paper to separate layers of cookies for freezing was a clever freezing hack that preserved freshness and prevented sticking, a common issue in mid-century home baking. This technique involved placing sheets of wax paper between stacked cookies before wrapping or placing them in airtight containers or freezer bags. The wax paper acted as a barrier, stopping the cookies from clumping together and keeping their shapes intact during freezing and thawing. Betty Crocker's cookbooks recommended this method to extend the shelf life of homemade baked goods and maintain their texture. This simple step saved bakers time and frustration by avoiding broken or misshapen cookies after storage. The hack fit well with the era's focus on food preservation and minimizing waste, especially important when ingredients and time were limited. Wax paper separation also facilitated easy portioning and thawing of individual cookies, making snacks or desserts convenient to enjoy later. This tip remains popular today among bakers aiming to keep their frozen treats fresh and intact. Peanut butter and watercress sandwiches were one of those quirky combinations that only the mid-century could truly embrace. Thick spreads of creamy peanut butter were layered onto soft bread, then topped with fresh watercress leaves. The peppery greens added sharpness, cutting through the richness of the peanut butter and making the sandwich both surprising and refreshing. Betty Crocker promoted it as a nutritious option, especially for children, since it paired protein with a leafy vegetable. At a time when mothers were encouraged to sneak greens into meals wherever possible, this recipe seemed clever. The sandwich was inexpensive, easy to prepare, and different enough to feel special in a school lunchbox or picnic basket. Adults often served them at luncheons alongside fruit cups, where the unusual pairing sparked conversation. While it may sound strange today, it reflected the era's spirit of experimentation and practicality. Peanut butter and watercress sandwiches vanished as tastes shifted toward sweeter or heartier fare, but they stand as an example of how inventive Betty Crocker recipes encouraged families to make do with what they had. Baked cinnamon sugar donuts were a simple and fast sweet treat that became a beloved snack for families looking to enjoy dessert without a long wait. Made from a quick batter that was baked instead of fried, these donuts were then tossed in a mixture of cinnamon and sugar, creating a delightful crunchy coating and soft interior. Their appeal came from combining familiar flavors with a method that suited busy schedules, offering a dessert that could be ready in under 10 minutes. These donuts captured the essence of home baking in the 1950s and 1960s, when convenience and comfort needed to coexist. The warm spice of cinnamon gave the donuts a nostalgic edge, reminding many of holidays and special occasions. Baked cinnamon sugar donuts were an accessible way to enjoy a treat that felt homemade and satisfying without the fuss of traditional frying. Glorified rice had a name that felt like a joke, but people meant it. You started with cold cooked rice, folded in crushed pineapple, stirred in whipped topping, and sprinkled in marshmallows like it was going to church. Some added maraschino cherries. Others used a spoonful of fruit cocktail. It was part dessert, part side dish, and part mystery. But no one ever said no to it. You would see it at potlucks next to fried chicken or at funerals beside scalloped potatoes. It went anywhere it wanted. Sweet enough for dessert, but tame enough to sit beside ham or meatloaf. The whipped topping made it light, the pineapple made it tart, and the rice made it filling. If it sounds strange today, that is fair. But back then, it was a gentle, feel-good dish that made people smile. You could make a whole bowl of it with pantry staples and serve 10 people without blinking. It did not pretend to be glamorous. It just tried to be good. And that was more than enough. Making fluffy rice by adding a pat of butter before serving was a finishing touch that added richness and enhanced flavor to simple steamed or boiled rice. This technique, recommended in Betty Crocker's cookbooks, involved stirring in butter just before serving to coat the grains, giving the rice a glossy appearance and a smooth, buttery taste. The addition of butter elevated plain rice from a basic side dish to a comforting accompaniment suitable for a variety of meals. This simple step also helped prevent the rice from clumping together, improving texture and appeal. The tip reflected mid-century home cooks' desire to make everyday dishes more enjoyable with minimal effort. Buttered rice fit well with the era's emphasis on richness and indulgence in family meals, especially when other ingredients were modest. This finishing touch continues to be a beloved way to prepare rice, combining ease and flavor in classic American cooking. Tomato aspic sandwiches were among the most unusual entries in Betty Crocker's mid-century repertoire. Tomato juice was mixed with gelatin, seasoned with vinegar, salt, and spices, and then chilled until firm. The resulting tomato aspic was sliced into neat squares and layered onto buttered bread, sometimes with a leaf of lettuce for presentation. These sandwiches were popular at luncheons, teas, and church socials, where their bright red color made them look festive. The flavor was tangy and savory, almost like a cold tomato salad, though the gelatin texture made them divisive. Housewives appreciated them because they were inexpensive, could be prepared in advance, and fit into the gelatin craze of the era. Tomato aspic sandwiches reflected the culture of thrift, creativity, and experimentation that defined much of mid-century cooking. They were unusual but memorable, showing how Betty Crocker recipes often blended practicality with novelty. While gelatin-based dishes have fallen out of favor today, tomato aspic sandwiches once stood proudly on tables as a symbol of refinement and clever homemaking. Buttered noodles with parmesan was a simple, comforting side dish that combined cooked egg noodles tossed with melted butter and grated Parmesan cheese for a rich, creamy flavor. It was a go-to recipe for families needing a quick addition to dinners that could be prepared in under 10 minutes. The buttery coating gave the noodles a silky texture, while the cheese added a salty, nutty depth, elevating what might otherwise be plain pasta. This dish was often served alongside meat or vegetable mains and was cherished for its satisfying simplicity. The recipe fit perfectly into the mid-century ethos of quick, budget-friendly meals that delivered warmth and fullness without fuss. It was especially popular in households with children due to its mild flavor and familiar ingredients. Buttered noodles with Parmesan remain a nostalgic comfort food for many, reminding them of easy, loving meals shared around the dinner table. You could smell the vinegar before you even saw it. Tomato aspic ring with cottage cheese center was one of those gelatin recipes that made you pause and squint. Made with tomato juice, lemon, a touch of spice, and unflavored gelatin, it set into a firm, glossy mold that looked more like art than food. Right in the center, a cold scoop of cottage cheese sat like a prize. It was chilled, sliced, and served with parsley or maybe a sprig of celery leaf if you were fancy. This dish was all about appearances. It looked organized, clean, respectable, and people loved it. Not because it was delicious necessarily, but because it was reliable. It held its shape. It stood tall on the plate, and it came straight from the Betty Crocker playbook of mid-century hospitality. Some people added olives or celery bits. Others swore by a dash of Worcestershire sauce. Either way, it was a staple at luncheons and ladies' club meetings, a showpiece more than a craving. It might not be your favorite dish now, but back then, it meant you had taste, or at least a good mold. Using a coffee filter to strain broth or sauces was an innovative technique promoted in Betty Crocker's cookbooks to clarify liquids and achieve smooth textures. This method involved pouring warm broth, stock, or sauces through a coffee filter placed over a bowl or pot, which caught fine particles, impurities, and sediment. The result was a clear, clean-tasting liquid free of cloudiness or unwanted bits. This technique was especially useful for homemade stocks or gravies, where a refined appearance was desired for elegant presentation. Betty Crocker's recommendation of coffee filters as an accessible kitchen tool showcased creative problem-solving without requiring specialized equipment. This trick fit well with the mid-century emphasis on presentation and quality in home cooking. It enabled home cooks to produce restaurant-style dishes with minimal hassle. Using coffee filters for straining remains a clever and practical tip for cooks aiming to perfect the clarity and texture of their liquids. Cucumber and peanut butter sandwiches were one of Betty Crocker's more curious creations, but they had their place in mid-century kitchens. Crisp cucumber slices were layered over creamy peanut butter on soft bread, creating a balance of crunch, freshness, and richness. The combination may sound unusual today, but it was once promoted as both refreshing and nourishing. The sandwich was inexpensive, easy to prepare, and offered more protein than a plain cucumber sandwich. Children often encountered them in lunchboxes, while adults served them at casual luncheons or picnics. The cool cucumbers cut through the heavy peanut butter, making each bite feel balanced despite the odd pairing. Housewives valued the recipe because it used ingredients that were always on hand and required no cooking. It reflected the experimental spirit of the era, where even sandwiches became a canvas for mixing textures and flavors. Though it has faded from memory, the cucumber and peanut butter sandwich once carried the Betty Crocker promise of thrift, creativity, and a touch of novelty. The easy cheese ball was a party staple that found its way into countless social gatherings thanks to its fast assembly and crowd-pleasing taste. Made by mixing cream cheese with shredded cheddar cheese, along with seasonings that could be adjusted to taste, the mixture was rolled into a compact ball and often coated with chopped nuts or herbs for added texture and flavor. This no-bake recipe required little more than stirring and shaping, making it accessible for even the busiest host. Cheese balls became iconic as appetizer centerpieces during holiday celebrations or casual get-togethers, providing a rich and creamy bite that paired perfectly with crackers or fresh vegetables. The balance of sharp cheddar and smooth cream cheese created a flavor that was both indulgent and nostalgic, reminding many of simpler times spent in lively company. Its speedy preparation and versatile presentation helped cement the cheese ball's place in the canon of vintage party foods, proving that deliciousness and convenience could go hand in hand. Fiesta corn casserole was bright, creamy, and baked until golden. It started with cream-style corn and sour cream, then got kicked up with canned green chilies and crushed crackers on top. Sometimes people added shredded cheese, sometimes they did not. Either way, it came out of the oven bubbling and warm with a crust that crunched under your fork. It was a side dish, technically, but plenty of people ate it as the main event. It paired with roast chicken, meatloaf, or just a green salad if you were keeping things light. The name made it sound like a party, and it kind of was. A Southwestern twist on classic comfort food that made its way into Betty Crocker's books in the late 60s and stuck around through the 80s. It felt colorful. It felt exciting. But more than anything, it felt doable. You could make it with pantry staples, feed a crowd, and still have leftovers. What more could you want? Separating eggs with a plastic bottle was a clever, no-mess trick that Betty Crocker's cookbook shared to help home cooks quickly separate yolks from whites without special tools. The method involved squeezing a clean plastic bottle to create suction, and then gently releasing it near the yolk, which would be drawn up into the bottle, leaving the whites behind. This technique minimized mess, reduced the risk of breaking yolks, and required no additional utensils, making it accessible to cooks of all skill levels. It was especially helpful in recipes that called for multiple separated eggs, saving time and effort. The trick reflected mid-century America's practical mindset, emphasizing innovative yet simple ways to streamline cooking tasks. Betty Crocker's promotion of this hack encouraged experimentation and confidence in the kitchen. The plastic bottle method remains popular today for its ease and effectiveness, illustrating timeless cooking wisdom passed down through generations. Date and nut sandwiches were a sweet and hearty treat that carried strong ties to tea parties and afternoon luncheons. Chopped dates were mixed with walnuts or pecans, often bound with cream cheese or butter to create a spreadable filling. This mixture was layered thickly onto bread, sometimes whole wheat but often plain white, and cut into neat rectangles or finger sandwiches. The flavor was rich and sweet, with the nuts adding crunch and balance to the sticky dates. These sandwiches were common at ladies' gatherings, where they were considered refined yet simple to prepare. Housewives valued them for their thrift and nutrition, since dates were inexpensive and nuts were filling. They also stored well, making them practical for events where food had to be prepared ahead of time. The recipe reflected Betty Crocker's ability to turn pantry staples into something that felt indulgent. While they are rarely made today, date and nut sandwiches once carried both comfort and elegance, symbolizing a generation of home cooks who prized resourcefulness and tradition. Tomato and onion sandwiches were a simple, straightforward lunch option that layered ripe tomato slices with raw onion rings and a spread of mayonnaise on soft bread. This humble sandwich was popular for its fresh, juicy flavors combined with a touch of sharpness from the onions and creaminess from the mayo. It was easy to make in a matter of minutes, making it ideal for quick lunches or snacks during busy days. The recipe relied on quality ingredients, highlighting the natural taste of fresh tomatoes and crisp onions, which were staples in many American households. Tomato and onion sandwiches offered a light, refreshing alternative to heavier lunch options, embodying mid-century simplicity and practicality. Many people enjoyed it in warmer months when tomatoes were at their peak, associating it with casual outdoor meals or quick bites on the go. The sandwich's enduring appeal lies in its straightforwardness and the nostalgic reminder of kitchen tables filled with uncomplicated, honest food. You knew it was dinner time in the 1970s when you saw hot dogs sticking out of mashed potatoes like they owned the place. Hot dog crown casserole was loud, fun, and made almost entirely of leftovers. Mashed potatoes formed the base, with a mix of canned vegetables hidden underneath. Then came the crown. Sliced hot dogs arranged in a circle like spokes on a wheel, ready to be browned under the broiler. It was part casserole, part sculpture, and it was kid-approved before that was even a marketing term. You might laugh now, but this was dinner theater back then. It used what was on hand, cost next to nothing, and gave kids a reason to actually eat vegetables. You could even find the recipe printed in the Kids Can Cook section of Betty's cookbooks. And while modern food blogs might call it kitschy, people back then called it Tuesday. It was filling, it was silly, and it got the job done. Browning ground meat in small batches for better flavor was a technique Betty Crocker's cookbooks recommended to home cooks aiming for evenly cooked, richly flavored dishes. Cooking smaller amounts at a time allowed the meat to brown properly rather than steam, enhancing its taste and texture. This method prevented overcrowding the pan, which can cause the meat to release moisture and become soggy. The resulting browned meat developed a deeper color and more complex flavors, making it ideal for sauces, casseroles, and skillet meals. This cooking trick was valued in mid-century kitchens for producing superior results with common ingredients like ground beef or pork. Betty Crocker's detailed guidance on this technique reflected the growing culinary knowledge shared with home cooks to elevate everyday meals. Taking the extra time to brown meat in batches showed an investment in flavor that distinguished home-cooked dishes. This approach continues to be a fundamental principle for achieving delicious and well-textured meals. Baked Spam and pineapple slices were holiday cheer on a budget. You took thick slices of Spam, topped them with canned pineapple rings, sprinkled on some brown sugar, and baked them until glossy. The sugar caramelized, the pineapple softened, and the Spam somehow felt like it belonged. It was easy, fast, and affordable, 3 things Betty Crocker knew families needed. This dish showed up in the special meals section of cookbooks meant for people who still wanted a little sparkle but could not afford a ham. It was the kind of thing you served at Easter when meat was too expensive or at Christmas when time was tight. It made the house smell sweet and savory at the same time. It looked cheerful, with its bright yellow rings and glossy glaze. And it reminded you that doing the best with what you had was not just practical, it was meaningful. People cut it into wedges, served it with mashed potatoes or rice, and called it a celebration. Was it elegant? Maybe not. But it was festive, and sometimes that mattered more. Pineapple and cottage cheese sandwiches added a sweet, tropical note to the mid-century lunch table. Canned pineapple rings or tidbits were layered with cottage cheese on slices of soft bread, sometimes with lettuce for freshness or butter to prevent sogginess. The combination was creamy, tangy, and lightly sweet, offering a refreshing alternative to heavier meat-based sandwiches. These sandwiches often appeared at luncheons, teas, or church socials, where canned fruit was seen as both modern and sophisticated. Housewives liked them because they were quick, inexpensive, and provided nourishment without much effort. Canned pineapple was easy to keep in the pantry, and cottage cheese was promoted as a wholesome dairy product. Children sometimes enjoyed the sweetness, though adults were more drawn to the novelty of the pairing. Pineapple and cottage cheese sandwiches reflected the era's fascination with canned goods and simple recipes that still looked special. Though forgotten today, they remain an example of Betty Crocker's adventurous, thrifty approach to everyday meals. Mayo and pickle sandwich spread was a creamy and tangy concoction that quickly became a household favorite for turning simple sandwiches into flavorful snacks. This easy-to-make spread combined smooth mayonnaise with finely chopped pickles, lending a perfect balance of richness and zesty crunch. It required very few ingredients but packed enough flavor to elevate plain bread and cold cuts into a satisfying meal. This recipe was especially popular because it was quick to prepare and used pantry staples, making it accessible to families during busy days or tighter budgets. The spread's tanginess cut through the richness of other sandwich components, providing a refreshing bite every time. For many, it was a nostalgic reminder of lunches packed for school or quick weekday dinners, evoking images of kitchen tables where comfort food did not have to be complicated. The mayo and pickle combination was a classic example of mid-century culinary ingenuity, using simple ingredients to create something greater than the sum of its parts. It was a spread that could be whipped up in moments but savored slowly, bringing together generations around the sandwich plate. Do not let the name fool you. There was no chocolate in sight. Party potato fudge balls were Betty Crocker at her most imaginative and most economical. These were mashed potatoes rolled into tight balls, dipped in butter or egg wash, then coated in crushed cornflakes for crunch. The name came from their appearance, round, shiny, and brown like candy. But the taste? Pure savory comfort. These were meant to be served at gatherings, especially when you were short on time, meat, and money. They were soft on the inside, crisp on the outside, and weirdly addictive. They worked as a side, a snack, or even the main dish if you had enough of them. Some people stuffed them with cheese or bacon bits if they had extra. Others just served them plain with a dollop of ketchup or mustard on the side. It was a strange little gem buried in the back pages of mid-century Betty Crocker cookbooks, and a reminder that sometimes the simplest things brought the biggest smiles. Nobody makes them anymore, but maybe they should. Soaking celery stalks in ice water was a simple yet effective trick that Betty Crocker's cookbooks shared to restore crispness to vegetables for salads and garnishes. This method involved placing celery stalks in a bowl of cold water with plenty of ice, allowing the vegetable to rehydrate and regain its fresh crunchiness. The trick was perfect for rescuing limp or slightly wilted celery, making it appealing for use in dishes where texture was key. Crisp celery elevated salads by adding a satisfying bite and fresh flavor, enhancing the overall eating experience. This quick fix was practical and required minimal effort, fitting well with the era's emphasis on efficient, economical cooking. It reflected the mid-century homemaker's desire to reduce waste and get the most out of ingredients. Soaking vegetables in ice water became a common household practice, proving that small kitchen habits could make a big difference in food quality. The trick remains a classic for anyone wanting to revive fresh produce and keep meals crisp and enjoyable. Sardine and egg spread sandwiches were a thrifty and protein-packed option that fit perfectly into the mid-century spirit of making much from little. Canned sardines were mashed together with hard-boiled eggs, mayonnaise, and seasoning until they formed a smooth, savory spread. This was then slathered onto bread, sometimes with lettuce for freshness. The flavor was bold, salty, and satisfying, making it popular in households where meat was expensive or unavailable. Sardines were cheap and nutritious, packed with protein and calcium, while eggs stretched the filling further. These sandwiches were common in working families' lunchboxes, providing sustenance through long hours. They also appeared at potlucks or picnics, where the spread could be made ahead and kept cool until served. While not as glamorous as other recipes, sardine and egg spread sandwiches were practical, nourishing, and firmly tied to the thrift of the era. Today, they are largely forgotten, but they reflect the resilience and resourcefulness of Betty Crocker recipes during mid-century America. Jellied fruit salad was a colorful and refreshing side dish that suspended chunks of canned or fresh fruit in flavored gelatin, often bright and eye-catching in the center of the table. This salad was more than just a dessert. It was a versatile dish that could balance heavier main courses with its light texture and sweet tart taste. Popular in the mid-20th century, it symbolized the era's love of molded gelatin dishes that added a touch of whimsy and elegance to family meals and potlucks. Preparing jellied fruit salad was straightforward and fast, typically involving dissolving gelatin, mixing in fruit, and chilling until set. The dish often included fruits like pineapple, cherries, and grapes, creating a festive look that delighted children and adults alike. It fit perfectly into the quick, efficient meal planning of the time while still bringing a sense of celebration and indulgence. For many, it remains a nostalgic reminder of shared meals and creative home cooking from past decades. Golden Glow salad was as cheerful as it sounds. A molded salad made from orange or lemon gelatin, finely shredded carrots, and crushed pineapple, it was Betty's answer to healthy eating that still jiggled. It showed up on dinner plates and potluck tables, sitting tall in ring molds or scooped onto a leaf of iceberg lettuce. This was not dessert. It was salad. The carrots gave it crunch. The pineapple gave it sweetness. and the gelatin made it behave. You could make it a day ahead and forget about it until dinner time. Some people topped it with a spoonful of mayonnaise. Others left it plain with just a sprinkle of chopped nuts. It was light, refreshing, and surprisingly popular during the 1960s and 1970s when people wanted to feel like they were eating better, even if it was still wrapped in Jell-O. It was not trying to impress. It was just trying to brighten your plate. And for a lot of people, it did. If one of these forgotten Christmas dishes brought back even a hint of memory, share it in the comments and tap like and subscribe so more people can rediscover the flavors that used to shine on holiday tables.